It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump.
Max Landis.
Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11-yard touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
Most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible!
I'm older and I'm wise.
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is going to be huge.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just when I think you've said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it, I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
She rises to her apology. Anybody else would surely know. He's watching her go.
Taking you home on a Monday, it is the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump, along with Adam Mundy, and we've got you connected on the Parkview Sports Medicine text line at 260-447-8500. Also, you can connect with us on Facebook today. We're streaming the show, so you can watch video style at facebook.com/1380thefan. Big hour on the way. Don Fischer joins us coming up in just minutes. Also, women's basketball coach Maria Marchesano had perhaps one of the biggest wins of the program history against Cleveland State. 29-game home court winning streak. Cleveland State, the preseason pick to win the Horizon League, and it's always seemingly come down to Cleveland State or Green Bay year after year after year. Well, there is someone new at the party, invited or not. It is Purdue Fort Wayne, who now leads the Horizon League standings after they get the victory on a Lauren Ross three-pointer with 2.5 seconds left. 78-75 was the final in Cleveland, and that just kind of set the table. It was the first of two big wins in Cleveland for Indiana yesterday, because not only did the Mastodons women win, but the Pacers got a big win against the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Sure did.
Big-time comeback. Pacers won at 108-93. What were they down at the half?
Ooh.
They were down. Hold on. I've got it.
You've got it.
I got to get it lined up with the old bifocals, you know. They were down 53-40 at halftime.
Yeah.
And they scored 40 points in the first half and then scored 37 points in the third quarter.
Yeah, it was a great second half.
Outscored Cleveland 37-18 in the third quarter, taking the lead, and then putting them away by outscoring Cleveland 31-22 in the fourth, and they did that without Tyrese Halliburton, but plenty of other producers for the Pacers in their win over the Cavaliers. You had, 19 from Nemhard. You had 18 from Siakam, 15 from Miles Turner. Ben Mathurin scored 12. You had 12 from Obi Toppin and 11 from Thomas Bryant.
Yeah, Thomas Bryant continues to be a contributor for this Pacers team. He was 5 of 5 from the field, did not miss a shot. He hit his 1 3 that he took, and he also added 3 rebounds and 2 blocks. So
Jarris Walker was a real key to the rally, too.
Yeah.
He ended up a plus 21 in the game. He only had 8 points, but 12 rebounds for the Pacers, who out-rebounded Cleveland 50-44, and that's an area of weakness for the Pacers. To out-rebound somebody is a pretty dramatic stat.
Especially when you're going up against the height of Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen down low there.
Yeah, it's a tall roster. It's a tough roster to out-rebound, and the Pacers actually out-rebound Cleveland in the victory. Those two teams will play again. Kenny Atkinson, the coach of the Cavaliers, says he likes it when you have back-to-backs because it simulates what you will get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so those two teams meet again coming up tomorrow night. And as we said earlier, Tyrese Halliburton is doubtful for the game coming up tomorrow night. Well, I'll tell you what, Purdue may have had the best game they've had all year. Boiler up, Purdue fans. That was quite the show. And you know, we've questioned this team and who was going to be other than Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer and Trey Kaufman-Wren, who's going to be the next man up that's going to step up and take a more of a significant role. And C.J. Cox, unbelievable game. 23 points, 9 of 11 shooting, 5 of 7 from 3. The Boilermakers, get this, hit 19 of 33 from behind the three-point line. It seems, when you hit that many, it just seems like every one of them is going in.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic from behind the arc for the Boilermakers. No question about it, and one of the main keys in the difference in this score.
Miles Colvin was 4 for 8 from behind the line. Jakari Harris was 2 for 3. Boilermakers, a big win over Nebraska, 104-68. And so, Purdue now 5-1 in the Big Ten. They're keeping pace with Michigan State and Michigan. I watched, Michigan State seems to really be rolling, but like I said last week, I don't count out Michigan as a Big Ten title contender. I think that team's for real. And they got pressured a couple of times by Washington, but had enough to beat the Huskies yesterday.
But there's Purdue quietly chugging along, maintaining their spot near the top of the Big Ten, even without a standout player like Zach Edey.
Well, and also over the weekend, the Mastodons get a win against Detroit Mercy. Makes it a perfect week at home. They played 3 games in a row at home. It's their longest homestand of the entire season. And they go 3-0 at home this week, making it 9-0 now on the season for a home record. And what's amazing is when you combine that with the women, it's, 16-0?
Yep.
As a combined home record. And the women will be at home trying to make it 17 coming up this Saturday against Northern Kentucky. But on Saturday night, it was tough because Detroit got hit with a couple of key injuries right before the game. So they had to sit a couple of players that are big-time players for them. But, man, that all-freshman lineup they put out there, those guys played hard and played well.
And, I mean, you see that sometimes, when some of the older guys have to go out, you see the freshmen come in and give it their absolute all because it's sometimes it's their first tryout with serious minutes on the floor for their coach.
And that's exactly what it is. It's kind of a tryout to earn additional minutes for the rest of the season, and they seized the opportunity. Nate Johnson was almost unstoppable there in the first half.
Yeah, he looked great. I think he had almost, 19 points?
Then TJ Nadeau, he ended up going off in the second half. And these are both freshmen. So the future's bright for Detroit Mercy, but the Mastodons just better in the second half. They pull away 90-67. Mastodons get the win. And you had Rasheed Bello with 26. CJ Hadnot, a career-high 23. Jalen Jackson chipped in 19. And big congratulations to Rasheed Bello, who was named as the Horizon League Player of the Week. Yeah, we don't have any I
don't have my sound effects, unfortunately.
But Rasheed Bello picks up the honor this week. It's the second time this year that Rasheed Bello's been recognized as the Horizon League Player of the Week. What's kind of ironic is that Jalen Jackson has not won the award, and in 2 different weeks, he probably would have earned it if it weren't for his teammate. Damn teammate taking the award. Because Bello, the 2 weeks that Bello won it, Jalen Jackson had the kind of numbers.
Right.
Because I think Jackson had 25 or something in the one game, and then had 19. But yeah, it was Rasheed Bello getting the honor.
Much deserved.
Yep. All right, we've got a lot still coming up. We're going to talk to Maria Marchesano about that huge win by the women's basketball program. We've got Don Fischer, who's going to be joining us on the other side. It's our 15 Minutes with Fish being presented by Hoopy Insurance Services. Also a reminder, coming up tonight, we've got Matt Painter and the Purdue Coaches Show, which will roll your way at 6:30, and then we turn it over to Westwood One for coverage of the NFL wildcard weekend. We've got the Minnesota Vikings against the Los Angeles Rams from the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona.
Go Rams.
It does seem like bowl season when you're not playing a home game. In fact, for the NFL, this is the first time ever that they have had a playoff game that has been moved to a neutral site.
Hey, credit to Glendale and the Cardinals Stadium. I've seen nothing but good stuff from both sides saying they've done a fantastic job getting ready.
All right, we've got Don Fischer up next. It's the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Welcome back to the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rupp along with Adam Lundy. And coming up tonight, do not miss Purdue basketball live coming up at 6:30. That comes up 30 minutes after the end of the Sports Rush, just over an hour away. And then tonight, we've got the NFL playoffs. Get ready for the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams from Arizona, from Glendale, Arizona. It'll be an 8 o'clock kickoff, and we will have your coverage right here at 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Coming up tomorrow night, we've got the Mastodons Coaches Show at 6, followed by Inside Indiana Basketball at 7. And, of course, Indiana, Illinois will be on the air on our sister station, 92.3 WOWO Radio. That is Indiana, Illinois, 92.3 WOWO Radio. All right, and speaking of Indiana, it's our pleasure each and every week at this time to have 15 minutes to chat with the legendary Hall of Fame voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, Don Fischer. It's our 15 Minutes with Fisch, being presented by Hoopy Insurance Services. Well, Don, when it comes to Indiana basketball, I think the proper phrase for the past week might be the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there was a little bit of everything last week.
Yeah, the bad and the ugly were both in the Iowa ball game. and the good was in the win over USC, but it wasn't all that great either. It was, here's the thing about it, Brett. We go through these things on a weekly basis, and one week you can talk about team looking pretty good, and the next week you have to talk about them not looking very good at all. And that's certainly the case in this situation, because I didn't think they played great against Southern Cal. A ball club that is struggling this year a bit because of all the new faces that they have, including their new coach. So they're a team that's kind of in transition at this juncture. And Indiana fell behind them early in the contest by 10 points at one point. They were down 10 with about 12 minutes to go in the first half. So that's not a good thing. But then they came back and they tied it at halftime, 38-all, and then came up with a good second half performance and was able to take the game out of the hands of Southern Cal, winning it 82-69. But then they come back against the Iowa Hawkeyes, and they were really never in this ball game. They were down 10 at halftime to that team as well, and then it just ballooned in the second half. And that was the bad and the ugly we talked about here at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And, here's the thing, Don. I didn't get a chance to see the games because you just happened to be playing the exact time that I had Purdue-Fort Wayne games. But sure, I watch the buzz on social media, and I see what exactly fans are saying. And it looks like the frustration that I'm witnessing through social media is it's one thing to play poorly and, maybe miss shots or, make an aggressive mistake. But I think what the fans are not willing to accept is lack of effort. And there was some question about the effort, especially Saturday night.
Well, unfortunately, that is the case. And I look at a team that goes out and busts their tail and plays really well and then not so well and still busts their tail. This team doesn't seem to do that very well. They may play well at times, and when things are going and they're playing good basketball and everything looks kind of smooth out there in the sense of taking care of business, and they fight through some things. But this team consistently is inconsistent. That's the biggest problem with this ball club right now. And a guy like Mackenzie Mbako, who, is one of the best shooters on this basketball team, and he goes through a game where he doesn't score a point or he scores maybe 4 or something like that. And sitting out, he's been taken out of ball games and sat for a good portion of contests this year. And sometimes he just doesn't look like he's motivated, especially when he's not making shots. Now, when he's making shots, he plays hard. But when he's not making shots, I don't see the same kind of effort on his part, and that's a big problem. And it's not just Mackenzie Mbako. It's other players as well. This team against Iowa just couldn't get much of anything done. 12 first-half turnovers put them in a hole right off the bat. They were down 10 at halftime. If they would have come out in the second half and been resilient and energized and ready to go to battle their way back into this contest, that would be one thing. That didn't happen either. So that's the struggle that I know the fan base is having at this point, and I can't imagine that Mike Woodson isn't trying to address that very thing himself. I mean, I didn't see him hardly get off the bench in the second half of the contest, especially the last 10 minutes of the game. He was resolute in the fact that we're not going to win this game. It doesn't look like we're going to win this game. And he had the reserves in there quite a bit in the second half. It was a real struggle for this IU ball club. I can't answer why, because I just didn't. There wasn't execution at the offensive end, and they struggled to get stops. Even though they did battle in the first half, I'll give them credit for hanging in there, so to speak. But when that second half got underway, you could just tell the handwriting was on the wall.
Is that one of the challenges for Mike Woodson transitioning from the NBA to the college game? Is in the NBA, you don't necessarily have rah-rah speeches. You don't have to kind of analyze whether the guys are ready to play. You just kind of have that expectation. But in college, you're dealing with a more immature athlete. And I don't mean that being critical. It's just a younger athlete that is still learning big-time basketball. But it just seems like that's an area where he's still trying to kind of figure it out in the differences between the NBA and the college game, is having a team that's motivated to play hard, to play well, to be focused on a regular, consistent basis.
And here's the thing, Brett, and this is what we're watching all over college basketball. The money that these guys are getting paid now has got to have something to do with it. And that, to me, is the biggest issue you're dealing with at this point, because it doesn't matter whether they win or lose. And this is the other thing about AAU basketball. All through these years now that AAU basketball has been a huge part of high school and college sports, AAU basketball has always had another game to play, if you know what I'm saying. These guys play all summer long. They play on teams that are primarily offensive-oriented, not very much defense played. It doesn't matter if you lose this ball game because there's another game in 3 hours from now. That kind of thing, that kind of thinking process. So the win part of winning, the part of winning that's so important, the want to win and the determination to win ball games, is gone for a lot of these kids coming out of the AAU scenarios. And then on top of that, now they're being paid, and you can't take money away. I mean, if they don't win the ball game, you can't fine them, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is what it's turned into, and in my mind, it's a big thing about the loyalty or the pride of the school on the front of the jersey. Those kinds of things are gone with this NIL era of basketball we're seeing at the college level.
Yeah, it seems like even starting at AAU level that it's all about you get yours and don't worry about the rest of the guys. I mean, if the team wins or loses, doesn't matter as long as you get yours. And you kind of feel that a little bit in the college game. But is there any way it can be changed? Can that attitude be adapted somehow under the current structure, or does it have to go away for college basketball to get back to what we loved so much about college basketball years ago?
Yeah, and you know what? It's like toothpaste out of the tube. Can you put it back in? It doesn't happen. And I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of coaches. I've talked to some players or former players that don't believe that this is going to change. It can't change anymore because there's just no way to change it back to the way it was. And I don't know how you bring that pride back or that toughness, all those kinds of things in regard to your home school. Because, again, you can leave as soon as the year ends or even during the year if you want to get into the transfer portal and find a new home. Therefore, there is no loyalty anymore in that context. Now, I'm not saying every kid's that way, but it's certainly the case for a lot of them.
Big one coming up tomorrow night. How do the Hoosiers respond with Illinois coming into Bloomington?
That's the question mark. This is an Illinois team that's played very well throughout most of this season. They've got some real talent on this team. Probably, I think, one of the best teams as far as new faces, and they've got a ton of them on this Illinois ball club. Brad Underwood's done a remarkable job of getting players from all over the world, not just the country, and he's got essentially 5 new faces starting in this ball game from a year ago. A bunch of guys coming off the bench that play as well. Several of these players are foreign players. Their best player, Kasparas Yakuchonis, is a kid that's just a freshman. He's the best player on this team, averaging 16 points a ball game. He got hurt prior to the Southern Cal game, in which they fell on Saturday. They fell to Southern Cal 82-72. So I don't know if we're going to see Yakuchonis or not. But the key here is that they've got other guys that can step in. They didn't do a great job of it against Southern Cal, but I don't think there'll be any question that Underwood will have them ready to play Indiana come tomorrow night. And this is going to be a huge challenge for IU, because they better find a way to get themselves ready to play this team, or they're going to get blown out again. This is a really good Illinois basketball team, ranked 13th and 15th going into this week with even though they did lose that ball game against USC, they may drop a little bit in the polls, but they'll still be in the top 25.
I want Yakuchonis to play so bad just to see if you can make it through a game without stumbling over Yakuchonis.
Trust me, I on another show I did earlier today, I mispronounced it 3 times.
All right. Hey, Don, before I let you go, want to take a moment and give a big congratulations. Once again, it's kind of become the Don Fischer Award, and it's very well deserved, but you once again are the Indiana Sportscaster or Play-by-Play Sportscaster of the Year. So a big congrats. At what point does this kind of just become old news?
Well, it's truly an honor to get this award every year, but you know what? It's not the most important thing. The most important thing is I'm still doing the thing that I love to do, and I've been blessed to do it for 58 years in total.
Any surprises, by the way, that Notre Dame and Ohio State, the 2 teams that happen to beat Indiana football, are still playing and will battle for a national championship?
You know what? It's the best thing in the world to be able to say Indiana's only 2 losses came to the 2 teams in the title game.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is.
We'll talk more about that game next week, because it'll be on tap next Monday. But I know we have a little switch of the broadcast schedule because of some conflicts, but we'll have Inside Indiana basketball tomorrow, and we'll have Indiana versus Illinois at 92.3 FM. Don, have a great couple of days, and good luck to the Hoosiers.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Brett.
Don Fischer joining us here on the Sports Rush. And, of course, our 15 Minutes with Fisch, always presented by Hoopy Insurance Services. Got to take a time out. We're going to come back. We got plenty more on this Monday edition of the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. And welcome back to the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump along with Adam Lundy, and it was a fun day to just sit on the couch and watch some women's basketball as Purdue-Fort Wayne battled Cleveland State. The Vikings had not lost at home 29 straight games, a streak that went back 2 years. And guess what? They don't have that streak anymore. Mastodons left town with a victory, 78-75. Dramatic fashion on a three-pointer with 2.5 seconds left. We've got to talk the details of this one with women's basketball coach Maria Marchesano from Purdue-Fort Wayne. And, Coach, congratulations. Huge win on the road yesterday.
Thanks, Brett. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Honestly, we didn't play perfect by any means. Didn't execute, didn't rebound well, but just did enough to get it done. Obviously, that's a really good program, and their record and home streak speaks for itself. But just so proud of the way we, gritted out that win through foul trouble and some early mistakes.
How do you enjoy this win for what it's worth? Because 11 straight, I believe the Mastodons had lost to Cleveland State. We all know the monkey that's been on the back with Green Bay and Cleveland State. You've got wins over both of them now. But how do you keep this game in perspective with still so much of a season and so many goals still ahead of you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we don't talk a lot about the streaks or being undefeated or, a lot of that stuff. We just kind of take each game. And we know each game is a challenge in itself, but then, being on the road at a really good program, preseason, favorites, you take it as a big challenge. And so you're excited about that because, not only did you, get that win on the road in conference, but you did it in, exciting fashion. So the girls were pretty pumped and rightfully so. And, but in the big scheme of things, we didn't say, hey, this means this or that. It was just like, way to get it done today. And, back to work this week. We got all week off before we play on Saturday. So that's kind of just how we approached it. And this group's different. There's a lot of new players that haven't been through the struggles of, the past. And so, they've come in to kind of hear about them and feel them through the kids who, have gone through that. But, we don't look at each game as, oh, man, we've never been able to get over this mountain. It's just, this is today's task. And yesterday we got it done.
So the important question, did they get ice cream?
No, absolutely. You know that's the rule, for sure.
I got to ask about Lauren Ross because I find it interesting, and I talked to you about it after the Green Bay game, that, here's somebody who has not been part of the program when it's been in its depths and has not been part of the rebuild over the last few years, joins the program this season. But she has almost taken it upon herself to be determined to get these victories over Green Bay and Cleveland State. And what a huge shot from the logo. You can't have a bigger bucket at a bigger moment than what she hit for you with that game-winning three.
Yeah, it's a great point. She does have that chip on her shoulder, and it's almost like she feels that pain, but also like, she's been through a lot in her career, and I don't think she really had much left to prove. And so coming here, healthy, giving her, a little bit of a taste of our past has kind of given her something to like prove and play for. And, there was nobody more excited, when we beat Green Bay, and obviously she had a phenomenal game that day. But, yesterday it wasn't like she had a massive game. She just kind of hit some timely buckets. That last play was not even for her. But, when Sid swung to her, she was ready, and she's ready for those moments. She likes it. She's been hurt a lot in her career, and the one thing that was able to improve while she was injured was her jump shot, because that's really all you're allowed to do for a long time. And so she's ready for those moments. She's built for those moments, and I was excited for her because I know, she's not afraid of it, and she's been such a good teammate. She's bought into our system. She's a Macedon through and through now, and that's been cool to see.
Interesting when you mentioned that last play, because I had, during the timeout, I had my guess on what it was going to be, and I said, I think Cleveland State's going to prepare. It's going to go into limbo because she has had the hot hand and been almost unstoppable around the basket. I was expecting that it would go to limbo, but Cleveland State obviously thought it would go to limbo. That's how Ross got open. Was it going to go to limbo?
Yeah, they couldn't stop her. She was, part of it is like, I think, they think like we do. They don't want to get their post in trouble, so she doesn't foul. And so when there's a post that's just going to play behind and not foul, you can just go to work, and that's what Jazzy did. But, they play, about 95% zone, a little bit less on us yesterday, which was kind of crazy to see. But, at the end of the game, they're in that zone, and they basically took one of their top people and said, hey, you got to go help, protect that entry. And, when they did that, Sid Freeman made the right read and swung it to Lauren. I actually had told Sid, if you can't get it into Jazzy, just attack the zone and get to one of your floaters. But when Lauren rotated over, it was the right read. And, of course, she shot ready with 2 seconds to go.
Got to talk about your roster, because I think today you need to go in and change. It is now Amelia Bromanchenko, forward/center. You've got, Jordan Reed, forward/center. Brenna Schwederman, forward/center. I think Taya Steinhauer even got time at the post. Foul trouble had you really having to scramble your lineup, and Cleveland State's not a team you want to have to search for a backup center.
I said going into this game, the worst thing that can happen to us today is that Jazzy and Renna get in foul trouble. And sure enough, both of them in foul trouble right away. I was so proud of the way everyone just stepped up and battled. Millie's used to playing 1 through 5. That's nothing new for her. But for Taya and Jordan to have to step down there and really battle and have some success down there, being mobile and just working their butts off, that was a proud moment because it's not something we really work on a lot. Obviously, you always know, especially with the injuries we have right now, that you could be put in that situation. But, I mean, it was severe. It wasn't just one of them in foul trouble. It was both of them in big foul trouble. So for us to somehow, we keep saying as a staff today, how did we win yesterday? How did we pull that out? But just to grit out that win and make enough plays in the end to get it done is just a really proud moment.
I thought the one thing that you did exceptionally well was you did create really good shooting opportunities. And there were some, I'll be honest, that I was shocked they didn't go in. I mean, there was one where Audra Emerson, one of your best three-point shooters, got so open in the corner she could have had lunch before she shot it. And, you just expect that those are going to go in. Did you? As a coach, and I know sometimes you see the glass half empty. A lot of us try to see it half full. Sometimes it's a challenge for a guy like me. But the bottom line was she was wide open, missed that shot. Do you ever at some point think, boy, if we don't, if we're not making those shots, maybe it's not our day?
We call those PB&J shots when you have enough time to make a peanut butter and jelly before you shoot it. And, we talked about that before the game because with their zone, if you're patient enough, you almost always can get one of those shots. And so, and I don't know, it's something mental that sometimes being too open is a harder shot to make. And, again, we talked about that. Like, if you miss it, who cares? Next play, we're going to continue to get good looks. And sure enough, we did. But, it's I don't know, man. They live in a zone, and that's been his system, and he's been very vocal about, the machine of that zone not being what it, has been in the past. And I think he's right. It's not as good of a zone as it's been in the past. But ultimately, we did not attack it as well as I thought we could yesterday. We did get some clean looks and obviously missed some shots, missed some bunnies. But I think we can do a lot better. Like I said, I don't think we played great yesterday, so we'll have to make some adjustments, and surely he will too for round two. But it'll be interesting to see. He played a lot of man against us yesterday, and that is not him. I mean, they came out first play of the game in man, and we've been coaching against him 4 years, and we have never seen that. And probably over the course of the game, I think he played 10 to 12 possessions of man, and that is extremely, extremely high for him. Usually it's one or two or none. So they definitely surprised us with that, but we got great looks against their man. It's not something they work on, so I'd love it if they played more of that, but it'll be interesting to see the adjustments he makes for round two.
Sometimes the respect you're getting as three-point shooters, because you've got so many people that can fill it up from the outside, and that's such a weapon. Maybe that's making coaches kind of change their stripes a bit. I do have to ask about Jordan Reed because she was so valuable to you yesterday. You mentioned the foul trouble to your bigs with Limbo and Schwederman, or if you wanted to listen to them say it, Schwederman, Rena, whatever they called her. But if you look at those two being on the bench, Jordan Reed just having to have some role, whatever it might be, she ended up making what could be considered perhaps the biggest 20-second stretch of plays that you've had all season with a big-time breakaway and kick out for a three and then the blow-by for the layup. Those were huge.
Yeah, she's, that's a game going into it. We knew that she would probably play a little bit more because we kind of joked that she's a zone buster because she's kind of a mid-range specialist. And in today's game, you don't see that a lot. So, going into it, we knew that she would get some mid-range looks and knew that we would go to her probably early and often. But with the foul trouble, it was, early and needed often. But, yeah, that stretch where she gets the steal, gets the layup, and then I thought on the next steal she probably should have shot that layup too, but she decides to stop and turn around and find Sydney Freeman, who knocks down a huge three. She was absolutely – I think she finished with 8 rebounds, Jordan Reed. So she was huge. Now, she did have a couple bonehead mistakes, and I think there was nobody happier that we won yesterday than Jordan because when Lauren hit that shot, it kind of took her off the hook for the turnover she had off the baseline out of bounds. But you know what? She's been amazing, great culture kid, great teammate. She's a Swiss Army knife, can do so many different things for us, and she was absolutely enormous for us yesterday.
Absolutely. Now you have what is considered, I guess, a bye week because you skip a round of games in the midweek and you've got off then until Saturday when you'll be back at home against Northern Kentucky. How do you use this week now that you've got it? Is it rest? Is it rehab? Is it trying to stay sharp? Is it some hard practice to work on things? What's your plan?
We took today off as first day back in classes for our kids as well, so that worked out well. And then tomorrow we'll focus on us. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit more of an offensive focus. Wednesday we'll focus on us, a little bit more of a defensive focus, and then we'll do our usual 2-day prep Thursday and Friday for NKU. And us coaches, we might sprinkle some NKU type things into those, first 2 days where we're working on us. It might be more, catered towards what they do. But we don't like to flood the girls too early with stuff. So we'll do our normal Thursday, Friday, 2-day prep for NKU. And honestly, they're a good young team. I think their new coach has done a phenomenal job. They're probably now my favorite team to watch in the league because their style is very similar to ours, and I can learn things and scouts based on how they've played teams in the past. So big challenge for us on Saturday.
By the way, gotta ask about the target on your back, because this is a program and a team that really hasn't worn the target much, but clearly now you've got a big one because you're all alone at the top of the league. Somebody's got to knock you off. There's a lot of teams that are wanting some help and maybe somebody else to knock you off. Going from that hunter to the hunted, is that something that's conscious? Is it something you talk about, don't talk about? How do you handle it?
Yeah, we talk about that quite a bit, actually. We, pregame we'll kind of remind our girls that, they're getting that speech in the other locker room that, we're supposed to win and the pressure's on us. And so they get to play loosey-goosey and go out there and play hard and have fun because it's a win-win for them, And so we used to be in those shoes, and we know how that feels when you have nothing to lose. The other team's got a way better record. Everyone's predicting they win. And so it is a dynamic that we've kind of attacked this year. We haven't talked about it as much recently because I think we just know it. It's just there all the time from here on out. That target's going to be there. Whether we're the first place team, second place team, third place team, we're still one of those top teams that, people want to give you their best shot. So it's definitely something we talk about and work through from a mental standpoint. And I think our girls are handling it much better now than they did early in the year.
I've got to ask because it leads right into a question I was going to say for the coaches show, but I'll ask you now while I've got you. When a team, and hopefully it doesn't happen, but if a team were to beat you, now that you are the hunted, if a team were to beat you and thoroughly enjoy it and celebrate it, would you be offended or would you be flattered at this point as a coach?
No, I think you take it as a sign of respect. I mean, I remember when I was at one of my previous schools, we had already secured the regular season championship, and the team beat us on our home court one of the last games of the season, and they went crazy, and the coach came up to me and apologized, and she said, "I'm so sorry, but we knew we had to play our best to beat you." I was like, don't apologize. Like, that's awesome for your kids, right? We don't want to lose, but it's a sign of respect. I mean, if they're not jumping around, obviously it's probably not that big of a win. So I don't know why anybody would be upset about that. Plus it's cool for the fans. It's cool for our game. And, in our case yesterday, it was, less about being a big win and more about how we won. You hit a shot with 2.5 seconds. Of course, you're going to celebrate that even if you're playing a bad team. You just won at the end of a hard-fought game where you had kids in foul trouble. It only makes sense. And if you're not celebrating, why, at that point, why are you even playing the game? It should be fun.
Absolutely. Coach, appreciate the time. Congrats on the win. Still plenty of things to play for, and so I hope we have plenty of opportunities to chat again down the road, and we'll talk to you on the Coaches Show later.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brett.
All right, that is Coach Maria Marchesano joining us here on the Sports Rush, and, of course, what a job she has done. Unbelievable. Taking over a program that had one win. It was like 1-29, and in fact, I remember at the time, I thought she's the one that should get this job before they hired her. She's the one that should get this job. I'm not sure she's going to want it. I mean, I'm not sure anybody's going to want it. The program had dropped so bad. The talent, we're recruiting GPA students, but not athletes. It was, and it's nothing against the women at that time. It's just the coaching staff just was struggling. Is a fair way to put it. And you're thinking, is this a job that someone wants? Usually you want to step up in your career. Do you want to really take this on? And what a job, 4 years. And here they are leading the Horizon League. They've got wins over Green Bay and Cleveland State, the really premier programs of the league. Unbelievable job by Maria Marchesano, and happens to be a hometown gal.
Absolutely. All the credit goes to Coach Marchesano. Done a fantastic job in her time with the Dons.
We'll take a break. We'll come back, wrap it up on the other side. It's a Sports Rush on a Monday on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Welcome back. Final time to the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump along with Adam Lundy. And coming up tonight, we've got Bam Painter and the Purdue Basketball Coaches Show coming up at 6:30. And then at 7:30, we flip it over to Westwood One's coverage of the NFL Wild Card Weekend. One game still to be played tonight in Arizona. The Los Angeles Rams hosting the Minnesota Vikings. And we've got coverage of that for you right here on the radio right after the Purdue Coaches Show. Coming up tomorrow night, we'll get you caught up with Mastodons basketball with the Mastodons Coaches Show at 6, followed by Don Fischer and Mike Woodson. It's the Inside Indiana Basketball. Plus, you'll have Hoosiers basketball playing tomorrow night on 92.3 FM, our sister station at WoWo Radio. Thanks to Don Fischer for joining us today, as he does each Monday, for our 15 Minutes with Fish, presented by Hoopie Insurance Services. Also, thanks to Maria Marchesano, women's basketball coach, Purdue Fort Wayne. Have a great Monday night. We're back tomorrow, 4 to 6, with the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.